Hey friends, Mr. Reed here, and today I would like to talk about events in Darktide. This has been something on my mind recently because I just grokked out the in-game event a couple nights ago. The in-game event right now is called... it's not Unrelenting Hordes, that was moving 21st. What is it called? It's like Shambling Horrors, I think. So, Shambling Horrors, what it offers is non-stop Poxwalker hordes, like they are always coming, they're always surrounding you, they're always attacking you, which I think for players who are playing in a lower skill bracket, the lower difficulty bracket, I don't mean to imply you're like low skill or whatever, but yeah, if you are a more casual player, this is actually pretty cool. It's pretty entertaining. I've been seeing a lot of positive reactions out of players online about it because it adds what I think should be like, a core element of all game modes for Darktide, which is, you're always fighting enemies. It feels cool to fight through enemies, and the more enemies there are, the cooler the fight feels. And these, of course, are mostly jobber enemies, so it really gives these players something to sink their teeth into, when ultimately a problem with lower difficulties like Malice, like Heresy, is that there just isn't enough stuff, and one player could probably blow the whole map away, no problem. So yeah, that has been really good for those players. Before I get onto my main point for the day, I must make a little diversion here and say there has been one main issue with this event, which is that for whatever reason, there was not the choice was made to not include high intensity or high intensity shock troop gauntlet. I don't quite understand the rationale behind that. I'm thinking maybe fatshark looked at it and said, because it's constant hordes, this might be overwhelming for players who aren't prepared or something. But I think that should be up for them to figure out. And by removing high intensity and high intensity shock troop gauntlet, what it did is for players who are playing at Auric and above, like on a typical basis, it made this event very boring. It made it very, very boring because yeah, there's no elites, there's no extra bosses or anything. It's just Poxwalkers all the way through. So yeah, I just kind of entered into a fugue state and ground this out for about 2 hours on stream, and it was kind of like one gray mass of killing Poxwalkers, not really a very engaging experience. If it was high intensity shock troop gauntlet, like you can get up to some stuff there. If it was that plus that could actually add a lot of difficulty, and that would be very cool. So I think going forward, regardless of whether this decision was made like intentionally or maybe the system had a glitch or something, just making certain there is high intensity and high intensity shock troop gauntlet should be the standard. I have about a 0% confidence that I'll hear anything either way about what the deal is there. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say on that issue. Now on to my main topic for the day, the main thing I wanted to say, which is addressing something I've seen players saying online, and that is that this event is good enough that they should be adding it to the rotation pool for modifiers for the game. And I agree, I do agree. That, however, or not however, but also, what about every other event ever, right? I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the mutators that we currently, not mutators, what are they called? The modifiers that we currently have on non-Havoc missions, the ones that can roll on your mission board, are incredibly narrow. There's only 5 of them. And so let me show you the mission board here. I'll pop it up on the screen. So look at this. If I'm playing an Auric difficulty, of course there's the event here, but we have dogs, high intensity shock troop gauntlet, high intensity, high intensity, and then of course there's the Maelstrom mission. Now we'll come back to Maelstrom mission in a second, but looking down here on Damnation, right, if you're a Damnation only player, what diversity can you experience in your games? Most of them are unmodified, they don't have any variations at all, and then we have dogs, high intensity, right, and then the event. So yeah, this is pretty undiverse, and the entire list, the comprehensive list, is right here. Hunting Grounds, Power Supply Interruption, Pox Gas, Shock Troop Gauntlet, and Ventilation Purge. And these can be both high intensity or not. But yeah, that's it, right? That is it. And these were all added, except for Pox Gas, which should be deleted from the fucking game. But these were all added right after release, like right after release. These were added, as I understand, it was added by a dev who took some time over the weekend to put these into the game because they realized that there wasn't going to be any diversity between the way the maps experience of the maps, going between missions when you played the same ones over and over again. And that was even more true back in the day when we started with, I think, like 12 maps or so. Now we have 20, but we aren't really making maps anymore. So what I'm saying is, why don't we use some of the massive backlog of events that we've made and put those into the rotation for your average non-Havoc player? And maybe even some of these could become potential underlying mutators to Havoc games to add additional variety there, because certainly players are not really getting too much variation within their Havoc maps, considering that pool is half of the total maps in the game that you're already experiencing. But imagine this for a second. Let's pull up the list of events that have taken place over the course of Darktide. In the past like 2 years or so that they've been doing events, let's look at what we've got here. So way back in the day, we had Unrelenting Hordes, Mobian 21st. This adds flak armored hordes. Of course, that would be popular with players who are playing in the typical game modes because yeah, it's more hordes, it's more stuff more chaff to cut through. It does, it does add a level of challenge there. There was also the Grandfather's Gifts, which did ultimately end up becoming a Havoc modifier with the Nurgle tentacle on the head sort of thing. There was Waking Giants. This would be an absolutely awesome modifier to add to all variations of the game, right? To have this be an underlying thing where you will guaranteed see more Ogryn enemies of all stripes, either Plague Ogrins or Crushers or Bulwarks, like those guys. Reapers will be appearing in more numbers. We had down here some of my favorites, Communication Breakdown, which added those radio gunners. What happened to those guys? Like, what the heck? Radio gunners who would call reinforcements. Admonition Ascendant. This is an awesome one, and I would love to see this as like an optional sort of thing, an optional difficulty to implement. This could even be in Havoc, right? Where there are these totems around the map that have a patrol of enemies around them. When you break them, of course, the enemies will get pissed at you, but the totem heals enemies around it, so you have to break it in order to be able to fight through those enemies there. And when you do break it, it summons a boss. So this would be, additional difficulty for Havoc, which is where players go when they're seeking difficulty, but also for like your typical player, think back on what have been popular events over time. And in my memory, it's almost always these ones where there's a lot of extra chaos added, right? There's more bonus bosses thrown in there. There's more hordes and this sort of thing. Admonition Ascendant, and then the copycat of it that came out this year before Pre-Skitarii. That stuff, it was very popular because it gives players who are not experiencing the Havoc Crush Your Balls difficulty a way to summon in captains and bonus bosses and extra hordes, just to have something cool to fight, because that's the thrill and the fun of the game. There's also Inferno, which can appear in Havoc, but I never see it on the regular mission board as a modifier, where the default enemy pool rolls more flame bombers, more flamers, and there's also like a fiery theme, like the level is very orange and all burning and stuff. That's really cool when it rolls. Rotten Armor could 100% be a modifier that could roll in typical games. It wouldn't. I guess you could have high intensity Rotten Armor if you really wanted to, but yeah, having that roll as something instead of Blackout, right? Getting these out of there. Light the Fuse, that was more bombers, more bursters. Smuggled Munitions, this one had patrolling captains who had a flanking retinue of plasma gunners with them, and you had to go and take them out and they would drop loot. That's sick. Like that sort of stuff. Adding that variation where when you roll into a map, sure, you've played HL 7004 5 times this last week, but this time it's got patrolling captain packs on it, right? And that would actually like be kind of different if you knew that's what you had to watch out for, is these captain patrols, and that can be quite challenging and add a level of variety. It's not much, but I'm not asking for much here, right? The fact that players are so excited, and this is going back to what I said at the beginning, the fact that players are so excited about an event that is literally just, here's some more hordes, and they're like, please, 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 fatshark, add this to the rotation for typical like map pool stuff. It speaks to desperation on the behalf of the players. If they are like, oh my gosh, can we get this added to the rotation pool? What does that say about the special condition pool? I mean, look at it. There's 5 things in here. We literally haven't updated this in years. It's been hundreds and hundreds of days since podcast was added, more than a year plus, since podcast was put in there. Probably we're approaching probably more than 3 years, probably approaching 4 years since Hunting Grounds, Power Supply Interruption, Ventilation Purge, and Shock Troop Gauntlet were added in there with no additional variations. And this is, the mission board, as much as I am always sticking to Havoc and stuff, the mission board is the bread and butter of Darktide. You need to make certain that players are having a fun and diverse experience playing this, because if you're not going to be pressing out any new maps anytime soon, you're not going to be able to hold on to players who want that diversity. The game is very deep mechanically, but not very deep in terms of content. But then you look at this amount of content here, Cartel's Favors, which actually had you could inject these stims, and those stims lasted the whole game long, and there was like pox gas rooms where you would have to the stims would protect you from the pox gas, and they would give you stacking buffs. Day of Atonement, which is another one where you collected the curios and you had to cleanse these shrines and beat bosses. Rumbling Giants, where there was you would get extra grenades, and there was way more ogrins and stuff in the level. Look at the amount of content that has been created for all these events that is just now mothballed, that is not used at all. But we don't have any content anywhere else. So this is all I'm saying. This is my plea to fatshark, please. And hear me out, all right? I know that you don't want to be told how to make your game or whatever, but utilize this stuff. This stuff is something that you made and you put work into. You're never going to bring it back for another event. So let's just put it into the game in the typical rotation for players to be able to experience. It doesn't need to reward stuff anymore, right? It doesn't need to give the badges or whatever. That was you missed it, you snooze, you lose sort of thing. But it should be something that players can experience for themselves and have fun with, because there needs to be more ways to have fun in the game. And these, in no small way, are fun. These are a lot more fun. Playing the Dark Rites event, playing Nurgle's Might, this is more fun than running the typical map. And, certainly you want players to have the base experience as well. That should definitely be mixed in there. But adding in these flavor things is going to be only good for the game. Anyway, that's all I really have to say. Oh, wait, also, do an event that does the Chaos Waste at home. If one modder, or like 1.5 modders, can make this in 6 hours, you can do it, and you can put it into your game, and you can let players play. I'd be happy to, make that line of communication so you can talk to them and you can get that hooked up, because that would be the most popular event of all time. You can fucking charge admission. I think people will buy it. I don't know. Whatever it takes to get more content into my beloved Darktide, I'm willing to put down my put all the effort it takes into getting that for everybody. Okay, that's all I gotta say. Anyway, guys, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you later on, streaming some Chaos Waste at home. Mystery out here. Bye-bye.